Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today, and let's discuss the random updates that have come to some Bethesda published titles, those games being Prey, as well as Dishonored 2/Dishonored Death of the Outsiders. Let's begin this talk with Prey, which received its most recent DLC, Typhon Hunters, which were released on December 11th. Now, while I wasn't huge on the base game of Prey, I sung the praises of Mooncrashers, which was procedural generation done on a AAA level to a T. It was so good and also remained narratively intriguing. Typhon Hunters is a part of the Mooncrashers package for $20. Suffice to say, I was very much looking forward to this. I played a few hours of Typhon Hunters, and I'm here to give you my impressions on that before moving on to talking about Dishonored 2/Death of the Outsiders updates as well. So in Typhon Hunters, you have 5 mimics on a map as they divide Transstar into these tiny bite-sized areas, which was a really smart developmental choice because if the areas became too big, mimics hiding throughout could become much more difficult to find. Another player will take control of Morgan Yu, and you guessed it, he is going to attempt to find and kill all of the mimics hidden in the room. It becomes a game of hide and seek, and also the player playing as Morgan Yu trying to identify what is slightly off about the area you are in. I found it interesting because it's not like in, for example, the base game of Prey or Mooncrashers, where in the single player experience, everything is preset and right in a spot that you know it was in. Whereas you move about Transstar, you start to realize, wait, that's a little out of place, I'm gonna hit that with my wrench. When you're entering a multiplayer map for the first time and you're sort of blind to everything, it's actually thrilling to try to find out what is off and what's supposed to be in a certain place. Because as a mimic, when you transform into an object, you don't turn into that said object, you in fact replicate it. So you want to put yourself in a position to succeed as a mimic. Considering if there's a guitar and then you duplicate said guitar and you're the one laying on the floor, someone's gonna run up and say, well, why is there a guitar with one stand here but a second guitar on the floor? Oh right, that's another player. It's an interesting way of being able to digest the info being delivered to the player in a quick manner, but not having it be this very flashy multiplayer mode. It's very tense and it works off the strengths of Prey itself. Now there is some tech holding it back, which really doesn't aid Bethesda at all, as they just rushed out one launch, and it seems this one is also very bare bones. The customization is very thin. On top of that, the menus, something's off about it. It just feels very early access, if I'm quite honest. While the mode itself, Typhon Hunters, is fun, it's just kind of that. So once you get bored of what is offered there and the gameplay tension disappears and maybe you have the maps memorized, you're probably not going to be dying to come back, especially since there really isn't any progression. It's designed to really just pull you into the Mooncrashers package as a whole, I believe, because Mooncrashers is absolutely the highlight of the Prey DLC. I still recommend it to this day, as it is procedural generation done on a level no one has experienced, and I don't think it can be beat for a while. Seriously, it can sneak onto some Game of the Year lists. It's that good. So with Typhon Hunters, it's just a part of that package, so it's kind of adding on to it, but the Steam reviews are not looking good. A lot of people are having a lot of tech issues with this game. In fact, for me personally, once I was done playing, I went to shut the game off and it completely locked up my computer. I could not close this out. I could not access any other windows, and so I had to fully reset my computer, and this happened a second time afterwards. So that is something that is incredibly frustrating, especially when it shows that Bethesda clearly isn't learning from the launch of Fallout 76 and applying it to their other products, which does scare me for some, like Rage 2 or Doom Eternal, ones that I am looking forward to. And we're seeing DLC for a game that really never got its due when it came to sales and PR attention, now having rushed DLC. I think if it released as a fully fledged expansion with all of that to boot, a lot more people would be talking about it, because when I saw it came out on December 11th, I wondered why it wasn't making the rounds and more people weren't talking about it, showing gameplay highlights. But after playing it, while it was fun with what I did experience, I understood why walking away. There just isn't enough there. Moving on to Dishonored 2/Dishonored Death of the Outsider. Now the update for both of these titles is the same. In a sly manner, Bethesda has offered some free content so long as you link your account, whether you're on the PS4, Xbox One, or Steam, to Bethesda.net. In exchange, you receive the Experiment Pack, which comes with some new bone charms, as well as a Mission Plus mode and a black and white visual style. Now, amongst all of these, I was most curious about the black and white mode. So that is what I fired up right away. I downloaded Death of the Outsider and played it immediately. It gives a very cool aesthetic.
A street fight. My arm dead and lying in the gutter. My eye gouged out by a Grand Guard sword. But when I wake up, they still hurt for hours. Gives me the creeps.
It also let me appreciate some things that I don't think I would have noticed if I weren't playing in black and white. Watching dust crumble from the ceiling, particle effects floating through the air. Those particle effects almost play as a film grain over the black and white, which gives it this near 50s vibe to it that I never expected in a million years. What's even more interesting and plays to a strength of the game is that the only color you see is red. So when you stab your enemies, you are only seeing blood on the ground, blood on the screen, and it really can build some interesting looking scenes that look preset for the player. I mean, I took out a bunch of guards in front of a building, and when I was looking at them and how they were stacked on top of each other, I feel in color it would have looked a little messy, like obviously the player did this, but when it was in black and white, it looked like I stumbled upon some type of murder, and I was the investigator. I don't think it's a reason to go back, pick up the game, but it's just another addition to what was one of the most surprisingly good games of 2017, Death of the Outsider. And I also really enjoyed Dishonored 2, although I know a lot of people, just like I mentioned earlier with a lot of other Bethesda games, had tech issues with that one. Now, Mission Plus, that may be more entertaining for folks because what you can do is load up a specific mission with a loadout that has completed the game, so to say, and experiment with things that maybe you couldn't have done in previous titles. So I can, for example, load up the second mission with a completed save file and use endgame powers that are fully upgraded on the second level and do things that maybe I never would have been able to originally. Considering that Arcane Studios has always been some of the best level designers in the industry, I found this to be a very exciting premise and something that will actually pull gamers back into the game, even if it's for a couple of hours. Now, for those of you who haven't played Dishonored 2 or Death of the Outsider, these are just additions on top of what are already fantastic products. I still stand by it to this day that I believe that Dishonored Death of the Outsider has the best story of the entire Dishonored series. It is really well done, it is really entertaining, and it also concludes a lot of plot holes left open in previous Dishonored titles. I think any hardcore Dishonored fan should do themselves a favor and pick it up, but the black and white adds a lot to it. So if you're looking to go back in a new game plus mode, that visual style may just add that one extra thing that brings this title over the top and makes it entertaining enough for you to play. That'll be my discussion for these Bethesda published titles and some of the updates they have received. Have you played with any of them? Have you toyed around with it at all? Let me know in the comments down below, and if you're enjoying it. Other than that, be sure to follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook. Those links are in the description down below, along with my Patreon. Do consider supporting that as it fuels all the content I create here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.